Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling. I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Now let's talk about food. Oh, how we love to eat food. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Black History Month presentation and celebration. I am your host and your culinary guide today on this adventure. My name is Chef Candace, and I am from the south side of Chicago, and I am so excited to tell you about this wonderful and amazing dish called Hoppin John. Hoppin John is as ancient as the ingredient or the legumes, I should say, that are featured in this recipe. So this recipe typically uses red field peas, which come from South Carolina, but they are now heirloom peas and extremely hard to find unless you grow them in your own garden. So black eyed peas are used as a wonderful substitute. Hoppin' John is typically enjoyed in or on New Year's Day. These peas or black eyed peas represent good luck, change, and Hoppin' John is usually served with collard greens, and collard greens represent money and fortune. So, what better way to start off our year with some good luck and fortune? And I'm excited to show you this quick, simple one pot recipe that's economical and so delicious. Stay tuned. Stories about food are stories about us, our history, and our values. One of the things that is so unique about food is the ability to tell history and to also show culture. Food for us comes from our relatives, whether they have wings or fins or roots. This is how we consider food. Food has a culture, it has a history, it has a story, it has relationships. Hoppin' John is typically a one pot dish. So, to take it back, when I think about, for example, the enslaved Africans who were preparing this dish, they didn't have a lot of pots and pans, right? They didn't have a plethora of equipment. Usually they were using one pot to do all of the things. So typically, Hoppin' John consists of some type of bacon fat or ham hocks, the Holy Trinity, which are onions, green peppers, celery. Then we have our spices, our bay leaves, and one of the most important components is the rice. Hoppin' John is part of the rice culture. The first English speaking settlement in South Carolina was established on the coast in 1670. For the first 30 years, the colonists had little success, but by about 1700, they discovered that rice, imported from Asia, grew well in the inland valley swamps of the low country. Throughout the 1700s, the economy of South Carolina was based overwhelmingly on the cultivation of rice. South Carolina became one of the richest of the North American colonies, and Charleston, its capital and principal port, one of the wealthiest and most fashionable cities in early America. Later, because of the extraordinary success in South Carolina, the rice plantation system was extended further south into coastal Georgia, where it also prospered. The rice milling machinery was created to address the booming rice production. Rice required delicate handling. There was a three-step milling process done by hand. The method used West African mortar and pestle technology and was the expertise of female slaves. Pictured here are women pounding rice. Pounding rice required great skill to ensure that the majority of the end product was clean, whole grains. African women were highly skilled in pounding rice. Rice was grueling work. In the low country throughout the 18th century, enslaved women pounded about 44 pounds of rice a day, which eventually yielded millions of pounds of rice for export. And here we have Carolina Gold rice, which is the first commercial rice ever produced in America. It has a slight golden hue and it has a nuttier flavor than most rice and usually has some germ left in it, and that's where all of the nutritional benefit lies. Rice was such a source of wealth and prosperity for those states that lay in the South. So, for example, in the Low Country in South Carolina, rice was the moneymaker. So we had, for example, Carolina Gold rice, which is unmatched when it comes to the varieties of rice. Once again, this particular rice is more of a heirloom specialty, so it's hard to find. And up until maybe about 20 years ago, this particular style and brand of rice began to be cultivated again, but for a while it was just extinct. And one other thing that I would like to mention is that this particular dish, Hoppin John, has been kept alive by the Gullah Geechee community in South Carolina. The Gullah Geechee people are descendants of West and Central Africans who were enslaved and brought to the lower Atlantic states of North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia to work on the coastal rice, Sea Island cotton, and indigo plantations. The Gullah Geechee culture is marked by its unique Creole language. Food is about making an interaction with ingredients. If you talk to them, they will always tell you a story. What makes Hoppin' John so special is that this dish connects me to my ancestors, right? It just tells such a rich and deep history of those enslaved Africans, my ancestors, that were brought over to America via the transatlantic slave trade and forced to provide free labor to essentially make America very wealthy. And this is a diagram of the transatlantic slave trade where it shows where enslaved Africans were taken from the coast of West Africa and then transported to South, Central, and North America as well as the West Indies. Why were West Africans chosen to cultivate rice in America? They were masters. They had all of the knowledge, they had all the information, they had the skill. So that is why, for example, the enslavers chose to capture Africans from West Africa and along the coast because that environment was very similar to, for example, the coastal regions in South Carolina and along those sea islands. South Carolina is about the same size as Sierra Leone and has roughly a similar geography and climate. Through food, we're able to understand and reclaim so many deep, meaningful stories. It's a direct connection to our ancestors. And now let the show begin. It is time to start cooking. Our first step is to coat our pan or our pot with oil to make sure our veggies have something to adhere to when they begin to sizzle and cook. Pictured here is what's called the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity is the base for several dishes in both Cajun and Creole cuisine. And when you cook the vegetables in butter or oil, it releases their flavor. The Holy Trinity consists of onions, celery, and green peppers. I like to use sea salt due to its nutritional benefit, but definitely a little goes a long way. And this is the minced garlic. We're going to give our pot a quick stir to make sure everything is cooking evenly. And here comes the mighty bay leaves. These peppers are going to give a nice smoky flavor. I am just adding one to the pot. And now I'm just giving everything a quick stir again to make sure everything is cooking evenly, to making sure all of our spices are blending and working together to create something so delicious. I'm adding a little veggie stock. And the veggie stock is going to ensure that our beans cook properly. They definitely need liquid in order to cook. And here we have our soaked black-eyed peas. I'm adding these diced tomatoes to the pot. And I'm just adding them directly from the can just to keep it simple. And now I am adding my spices. That was a touch of onion powder, which I love, by the way. And then I am going to add some garlic powder. I absolutely love garlic powder. I kind of put it in everything. And next, I'm coming through with some smoked paprika to further enhance the smokiness of this dish. And we have to have a little liquid smoke just to make sure that smokiness is deeply tasted in the dish. I'm coming through with another touch of sea salt, and the pot will be covered to cook. Why is this recipe so important? It shows that we survived and we continue to pass on our culture and our traditions through recipes, through food. And for example, legumes are so ancient. They are one of the oldest crops out there. And this is just a diagram of the different types of legumes. I must mention that the legume black-eyed peas are more of a bean than a pea. And these beans came from, you guessed it, West Africa. So where did the name Hoppin come from? No one knows. Because remember, in that period of enslavement, slaves were not allowed to read, to write, or to keep any records. So, for example, a lot of that history and information is gone, which is to all of our detriment, but that was the energy and the vibe of that era. So, The speculation about where or how this dish got its name doesn't really add up. Yeah, there's so many different stories, but the real essence or meaning of Hoppin' John and where the name originated is still to this day unknown because, as I mentioned, enslaved Africans were not allowed to keep any record or history of their experience. Now back to our bubbling pot of goodness. I mean, look at it. Look at how everything has come together and everything is stewing and melding so beautifully, all those flavors. And here I am with the fresh collard greens to create my stew. And next is the plating. I am taking a scoop of brown rice. I prefer to eat brown rice, but this dish is typically served with white rice, as I mentioned, Carolina Gold rice to be specific. And then I am topping the rice off with the Hoppin' John. It looks so good. I wish you all could smell this. And here we are with the big taste reveal. I am so excited. This looks so good. It smells so delicious. I'm so excited to taste it. This is giving me South Carolina. This is giving me West Africa. This is giving me just the hand of my ancestors all up in this pot because it is so good. This makes my heart so happy. I am feeling the spirit of my ancestors all up and through this dish. I am so excited for you all to try this dish, and it's absolutely outstanding. And there you have it, our one pot dish, Hoppin' John, which is absolutely flavorful and amazing and delicious. And you don't have to add the meat. You can keep it vegetarian or vegan, and it tastes just as delicious. I hope you have enjoyed your stay here. I hope you have enjoyed this culinary journey. So feel free to ask me any questions. You can leave them in the chat. You can email. Just let me know any questions you have. I am here for you. I am super excited to have presented Hoppin' John to you during this Black History Month. Power to the people. Keep hope alive and make sure to eat your veggies.